Hey everyone, Brad the Mechanic here. Today it's a 2003 Ford F350 Super Duty with the Power Stroke. We are doing upper and lower ball joints and the front tie rods. I'd already changed the drag link to the pivot arm, but it's pretty straightforward once we get under there. So yeah, so let's get started. Let's get it jacked up. So this is a big truck, so you're going to need a pretty good size jack and a good size jack stand. I wouldn't use your normal 2-ton jack stands. I would make sure it's at least 3 tons. Yeah, so let's get the wheels off and get going. Lube these up a little, just for good measure. Sometimes you'll have to bang on these to get them off. But yeah, this one came off just fine. And I'm going to throw this under here just in case, so I don't get cut. Just as another failsafe. So we have to remove these. On a normal truck, even if it's a 350 and not a dually, it'll just have the studs right here. This is like an extra step, but you'll need to have your extension. You put your socket on here, put the ratchet in, or I mean the extension, and then you can remove it like that. And then you'll have to take it out and pop it out just like that. So I'm going to do the rest of these, and then we'll continue. So you gotta smack this a little bit. And then that'll come right off, just like that. And then if you look right here, you can see these two metal pieces, and you have to squeeze them together. Sometimes you can just do it by hand. Get it out, and then this thing is going to come off. Just get a couple taps. You can see it starting to come out of there. A few more taps. You could probably shoot some WD in there. You could do that beforehand. That would probably make it a lot easier. There we go. Then that comes out. As you can see, this is your hub locker. Looks like it's in good shape. Everything's together in here. It's good. Okay. So now take a look down in here. We're going to take this snap ring off, which will free the axle from the actual wheel bearing. Try to get down lower so you can see inside where I'm working. See it at all? Mm-hmm. All right, so you got to get your snap ring pliers in there, push out, and come forward like that. Boom. Then there's a few more washers in there that you got to pop out. So I'll do that. And I always pull them out and I set them down in the order that they came out so that I know everything's in the right order. All right, so now we're going to take off the wheel speed sensor from because we're going to be taking this whole knuckle off, so we need to take it off of this clip right here. These ones up here. Sometimes you don't want to pull on them too hard. This one's got one of those clips like that, and then that should come right out. It should. There we go. We got that. And we're going to take this, push in right here, pop that out. So this is now just free. So when we take the knuckle off, it won't still be attached. You don't have to take this piece off right here, the screw. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, because it puts it right here, and I have to torch this sometimes. So I actually am going to remove that. So I'm getting that off there, and then we will be able to move on to taking other stuff off here. So before we move on too far, this is a axle breathing tube. So that'll have to come off. Usually just needle nose pliers if it doesn't want to come right off, but this is going to come off. Boop, just like that. We'll get this out of the way. We're going to move on to take this caliper off and the bracket. I'm just going to take the bracket off and the whole thing will come off, and then we'll set it down, make sure that the brake line isn't too taut, because it can mess up this rubber inner lining here and possibly even this metal line. So let's get this caliper off here and we'll keep going. All right, so I'm going to take this tie rod end off really quick, because then I can move. It's also another 21 mil. Then I can move the knuckle freely. So in order to free this, you don't ever have to hit it down here. You just hit it here a few times. watch out. And there you see, comes out of there, just fine. And then I'll probably take off this drag link in order to give us some more movement, because this is all coming off anyways when we're replacing this. So yeah, I'll do that and then we'll keep going.
Hi, Teal.
So since we're all right here, and I got the tie rod end off, and as you can see, it makes it so we can move this around easier. It'll be easier to get to the caliper. But since I'm here, and we are changing this big tie rod, it's a big one-piece tie rod. Well, it's 2 pieces, but it's 1 big bar. We have to take the stabilizer shock off, which is a 15 on the top, I believe. Yep. And then an 18 on the bottom. And you'll take that off and pop this out in order to, where's my hammer? In order to, this will all drop. And then all we'll have to do is take it off to the other side, and we'll be in business. So now I'm going to take this caliper off with the bracket, but I set a piece of wood down here so that when I take this off, it's going to just sit on that and not hyperextend this brake line. So I'm going to pop these off real quick, and I'll show you. Sometimes this will be hard to come off. This is actually coming off just fine. I'm going to set this right here so that it's not pulling or pushing on any of these lines. And now we're ready to take the rotor off, which I'll do. And now we're going to get behind here and take the 4 bolts off for the hub assembly. So these back here, behind, there's 4 bolts that come onto these studs. These are 4 studs in here, and there's nuts actually on there. And the first one was right here. I was able to get it off with the impact. This one is in a little bit tougher of a spot. Sometimes you got to turn the axle in order to get it just right, but it will go in there. And you might have to break it free with your breaker bar first in order to get everything going. But once you do, it should come loose with your impact or whatever else you're using. But yeah, it's tight spaces. Let's see if we can get this broken loose here. So now that that's broken loose, I'm going to come back in the impact and bust it out of there. I could have probably got it out, but I have an a swivel on here, so I'm not trying to put too much pressure on it. So it's kind of the same concept for the other side. So I'm going to get the other 2 off, and then we'll move on. So I'm just going to bang this off with a hammer.
Like he was doing before.
Which, this is why, actually, you need to take it off of the knuckle, because when the wheel bearing does come off, this has to be separate. So this is actually coming out just fine. And now we got to get in here and get this seal out. Okay, so this is sometimes a pain to get, but I found a trick. We pull this little metal sleeve out, this metal ring that you see here, we're going to get in there and pop it out. And when we do, this is going to allow the gasket itself to move freely, a little bit more freely inside there. And once we do this, we can easily pop the axle out of the housing. That's all. So actually, this is where the wheel speed sensor was. You do need to take this bolt out in order to detach it from here once you take the wheel bearing off of the hub, or the knuckle. So you're going to get in here, get back behind the axle, and pop it out. And when you push it good enough, it's going to pop that seal. It's going to bring everything with it. That's what you want, because then you can clean this up and put it back in if you have to. Now the axle is going to come out. This one's a bit longer than the other side. But yes, and then we're going to set it down and make sure it doesn't get dirty. So now you're going to want to clean out this area in here. And then we're going to move on to taking these ball joints off. I'll get the cotter pins out of there. Might need to grab my needle nose pliers, but that's okay. So we'll get those off. We'll lube this one up, get this one off, and pop the knuckle off. So what I'll do is I'll try to get a needle nose in the loop, and then I'll come around and tap it with a hammer to get it out. Boop. So we got 32 mil on here. I'm going to pop this off. Get to the bottom one and see what size that is. Can't remember. So we got here, what I'm using is an 1 3/8, but it's a little bit too big, but it's still good enough to get it off. This one comes off pretty easily. So once I get this one loose, I am going to snap right here and right here. And also this right here, if you look closely, there is a line. You don't want to move that line right there. That is for the camber and caster adjustment on your alignment. So I'm going to finish getting this off, and then I'm going to smack the knuckle where they meet, right here, and that's going to free the knuckle from the axle. So I smacked it and it just fell, so that's good. So now I got the knuckle up here. I'm going to start by taking this lower ball joint C-clamp off. Always be careful because these things can go flying. I shouldn't have done that without glasses on. But now we're going to move on to getting the press out, and we're going to press these bearings out. So I got this on here. I got the, actually I'm going to adjust that. Make sure that that's going to go up in there.
My ears are ringing.
That. This one out, now on to the next. Alright, so using this bearing press tool, it's pretty simple. It's just a C-clamp, and you got to use a variety of these to get it on and off. It's pretty much crucial to have in order to do this. You can, if you don't have them, you can rent them from AutoZone though. So you have to pay to rent it, and then you get a full refund when you get it back. So it's kind of like buying it and then just returning it. So yeah, that's going to be the key to getting those in and out. I did take a little bit of sandpaper and I clean out the mating surfaces, and then I'll throw a little bit of WD in there before launching them on there. So I'm going to get the other wheel bearing put in, and then we will install this back onto the truck. Alright, so now that I got the ball joints installed, you have to make sure this one comes out enough so that the C-clip can fit all the way over it. And then make sure that it's in there like that. And then we'll bring it over to the truck and install it on the truck. Make sure you get your Zerk fittings in there. Now, I always bring the nuts with me because getting this up there, you kind of got to hold it with your knees, and then get your nut on there, like so. Just like that. And then we'll get this one down here. This is a lock nut, so if you see, there's notches right here. That side is up. This is the lock part. This side has no notches. That's how you know this side is up, and it's a lock nut, because it has little notches in it to make the nut not spin off freely if it ever does, for some reason, come loose. So I'm going to tighten these up, and then we'll go get the axle and throw it in here. All right, so got the knuckle on. I got the top ball joint nut on with the castle nut tight and the cotter pin in there. The bottom one also tight. So now I'm going to throw this axle back in, the axle tube. It's going to be a little bit harder to line up since this is a longer axle, but I don't think it's a problem. Just like that, goes in. You'll have to probably get back in here and pry a little bit to get the slide all the way in, and then we'll move on. Alright, got the axle pushed in, and then I took that metal ring and I pushed it back into there, and it pushes that seal back, makes it taut again. So now I'm going to grab the wheel bearing and throw that back on, and I'm going to put the 4 nuts on the back, tighten those, and then I'll put on the rotor, and then we'll put on all the other stuff. Right, so I got those 4 nuts tight. I'm putting the hub locker back on. I don't even think I'll need needle nose. I might just be able to do it by hand. Just kind of pinch it, push it in. And maybe just use these to kind of get it all the way in there. Okay, great. Now I'm going to grab the rotor, throw that on. Hello. Here. This on there. Good. And we're going to put this piece, and we'll start installing by hand, or no, watch out, Russell. What you don't want to do is get this on here and then put all these on by hand. You don't want to do that yet, because what you'll have to do is put it in the socket. I had to put a piece of paper towel in there so that it would hold the nut up at front, and then you set it in here, and then you twist it on, because you can't get this on there with the nuts already installed. So it takes a little bit of time, but that's the process. In order to do this correctly, you'll want to set it in here and then put it on here before tightening.
Rosie! What are you doing? What are you doing, Rosie?
So we got the rotor installed, we got the 8mm installed here. We ran this back up. One of them broke, so I put a zip tie on here. Back up, plug that back in, right behind there. And then the two 21 mils for the caliper, get that on there. Make sure that your rotor's clean. Mine had a little bit of oil on it, so I had to wipe it off. Then of course all of these, in order to install it, the 8 lugs, they're all 21s. We made sure that we had the clip installed there. Now the ball joints are pretty much done. So what I am going to do, since I have to replace this tie rod bar, I am going to install the wheel, leave this in for right now so that the wheel is aligned exactly where it's supposed to be, and I'm going to lower the truck onto the tires so that the tires don't move. Then I'm going to remove this bar and take the new one, and when I install the new one, I'm going to adjust it to fit right where this was, so that there's very little alignment adjustment that you'll have to mess with afterwards. So that's just a little tip that I use. It's only on these like bigger trucks because you can take the tie rods on and off with the wheels still on and the truck's on the ground. So that's what I'm going to do to that to get that piece lined up and then put together, adjusted, and then put back on there. So you guys, let me know if you have any questions about this. When I do these, I usually get new adjuster sleeves, which make the job a lot easier, but you don't have to do that. So yeah, just make sure that you retighten everything. Make sure you're putting all the lines back, make sure your cotter keys are in, and then take it for a test drive, make sure everything feels good. So yeah, like I said, if you guys have any other questions or stuff, let me know, and you don't have to like or subscribe, it doesn't matter to me. I just want to make sure that people get their cars fixed. So that was my cameraman. These are my camera dogs. I don't know where the other one is, but all right, everybody, have a good one, and happy 2020.